why I do what I do is based on life events that I've seen during my life and the fact that I want to be prepared for any of those events that might happen to me in the future. This goes for prepping my homestead and making sure I can get back to it in the case of an emergency. This is going to be a two-part series. The first part right now is going to be going through kind of why I do what I do, the events that I might face, and my reasoning behind doing what I do, and how I plan to deal with those events if I actually face them. The second part, I'll go through my get home bag, the stuff I have in it, and why I have a get home bag now instead of what used to be my bug out bag. Then I'll go through some of the gear I have in my truck as well, since it's the first thing I'll be using to get home here. Now for me, I continue to use and refine my get home bag versus a bug out bag. The reason for this is I'm no longer in a situation where grabbing a bug out bag and heading out into the woods is a viable option for me. So first, let's start with three major events that really hit home for me and really shaped who I am as a person to get prepared the way I do. The first event when I was younger was a tornado. We had a tornado go through the town north of us and it ripped it apart, the Barrie tornado in Barrie, Ontario. And it really impacted me on what nature could do to us and how we have to be prepared for different situations that Mother Nature might throw at us. That got me thinking about, having preps on hand for not only food, but medicine, as well as backup power that I might need in case I was displaced or part of the house was gone, or even the power was out, or something that I couldn't function in life as I normally could. Another event that took place when I was younger was the big ice storm in Quebec, Ontario, Maine. And that shut down the power for, I think it was about a month, that some people went without power for a month. And that really affects your ability not only to heat your house if you don't have wood or oil, that sort of thing. Now that really affects your life nowadays as how you would behave normally, how you would cook your food, how would you heat your house. All these factor in onto your day-to-day life. So that again hit home and made me think about what I need to do in the future for myself to be prepared for these events if they do happen again. Now the third event was a train derailment, and that happened to a few towns away from where I was living at the time. And they had to evacuate people from in about 2 square kilometers of the area that it took place. Now you had about 5 minutes from the time the fire department and police and emergency service came, knocked on your door and said, hey, get out. It's not safe for you to be in this area. So again, that made me think about what needs to happen, what I need to prepare for, what I need to have on hand should these events happen to me at some point in my life. So now later in my life, I'm in this position I'm in. I've built a situation where we've prepared, we've put meat away for a year, we've probably got veggies for 3 months, we've got other supplies put away, emergency power, emergency water. We're in a kind of comfortable position where I think we can face most natural disasters that we might face without a problem whatsoever. Now there's a lot of natural disasters that people face that we no longer face in this location. Some of those being earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, avalanches, tidal waves. Tornadoes is possible. But again, with the tornado, it hasn't really happened in this location. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but it's very improbable that it'll happen. And with a tornado as well, it's not something where I'm going to bug out. I'm going to shelter in place. And if I'm not home at the time that it happens, well, I'm definitely might be using my get home bag to get home and check on everything and make sure everyone's safe. Now, a lot of the times when we talk about bug out bags and get home bags, I think a lot of people immediately go into the SHTF situation where, you know, the world no longer exists the way it does. And it's not to boo-boo that attitude. However, there's a lot of other stuff that you need to prepare for, like the natural disasters that might happen. One of the big things that I prepare for too is snowstorms, ice storms. If I'm at work and I have to get home, then I'm definitely going to need something to get me home. I'm not going to try and bug out into a snowstorm or an ice storm. So with that, the snowstorm and ice storm in our location now would probably be the biggest threats we face. And again, sheltering in place is what we want to do. We're not going to bug out from our location. We're going to stay here. And if we're not in our location, we're at work or in another town or something like that, our goal is to get home as soon as possible. Now, flooding. We're in a situation here where we're up on a hill. It would take quite a bit of water to actually flood our location. We're also sandy soil. So anytime it rains, like we had 3 months of rain last year, almost straight, and we still didn't have very many puddles. We didn't have flooding here. In the town where we are, it usually floods because of the river, the ice dam, the amount of precipitation we get here. We've never faced that issue because we are up on a hill. So flooding is not something we really have to prepare for. The thing with the flooding is it might cut off our passage to town. It might cut off the roads. We've seen that before where the roads close. So having preps here in the house to be able to feed ourselves for a while is again our main goal. There are other natural disasters, hail, winds, again, lightning, not a really big one, volcanoes. We don't have any volcanoes in this area, so it's not something we really have to prepare for. One that we do have to prepare for and that we have prepared for is actually forest fires. We're surrounded by a pine forest. We've actually cut the pine forest back away. We've cleared some of the land. We're going to use it for garden, for cow pasture, that sort of thing. So we're trying to get the trees further away from our house, from our livestock. As well, we try and green up the area to keep it moist, to prevent it from going dry. We're trying our best to make it a spot where if a fire does happen, we'll hopefully be protected in some way. We do have the pool, we've got sprinklers, so we have an idea of what we can do if a forest fire happens in our area. If we do have to leave, we are prepared for that. That kind of goes along with the get home bag. It will be our immediate get out of Dodge bag. However, again, when I think of leaving the homestead in that situation, I'm not bugging out. I'm not taking my backpack, my axe, my saw, that kind of equipment into the woods to try and build a log cabin and live there indefinitely. We'll be going to friends or family or a hotel, somewhere where we can get away for a bit and then come back when the threat is gone. The nice thing about where we are located is we do have a water bomber station very close to us. And we did have a forest fire happen about 1.5 years ago in the spring, and it was put out almost immediately because of those water bombers that are located close to us. It probably took them just a few minutes to get here and already attack the fire. From where it started, it consumed about 7 acres in that time. But again, there was 3 water bombers on a station and they put it out almost immediately. So we're pretty lucky in that regard. So again, for me, the situations will be something where I've gone to work or I've gone into town, I get stuck in a snowstorm or an ice storm happens, that sort of thing where I can't get home with the vehicle. And that's why I have the get home bag, is if I can't get home with the vehicle. Now let's talk about a situation that I don't think everyone's really thought about with a get home bag, is the situation of how long it's actually going to take you to get home. The average commute in Canada, and probably the US is the same, is about 12 minutes, which means that's going to translate into about a 3-hour walk from your work to get home. For those of us like myself, where I'm about 45 minutes to an hour away, that translates into probably I believe it's a 12-hour walk that it would take me to get home. And if I'm really in dire situation where my truck is incapacitated, I have to leave the truck, I have to get home, that's kind of the real SHTF situation that's going to happen, and following roads might not be the best option. So going across land, overland, through woods, across some of the rivers might be what I'm going to have to do. So instead of walking 5 kilometers an hour and making that journey in 12 hours, I might be doing half that pace, and I might be going 24 hours to get home. So again, the bag is kind of built on the premise that if I'm 24 hours to get home, I'm definitely going to need some gear to be able to do that. As well, where we live, again, it's snowstorms, ice storms for the most part. We're very cold weather for the most part of the year. So guys, I hope this kind of explains some of the reasons for me to use a get home bag versus a bug out bag, and my thought process behind some of the natural disasters, some of the things that we might face. An actual SHTF situation is something that I don't foresee happening to us in Canada. I'm not saying it's not possible. However, we haven't seen it in our history versus other countries where they have had not only bad natural disasters, but economic collapse and different scenarios where the event is a lot more serious than what we're going to have to face here. So that is why I've kind of built this premise versus this premise. So guys, thanks for checking out this video. Let me know if you have any questions below, and stay tuned for the second video where I'm actually going to pull this apart and pull apart some of my truck gear and kind of show you what I've put into each of these systems, and again, my reasoning behind it.